The FBI has been involved in numerous high-profile cases throughout its history. While it's challenging to definitively rank the biggest case, here is a significant case that had a substantial impact on the FBI and captured national attention. Hello, and welcome to the Probopulse investigation, and let's start the video by unveiling one of the most famous corruption cases in the world, the WaterGate Scandal, 1972-1974. In June 1972, 5 burglars, including former CIA operatives and the security chief of the Committee to Re-elect the President, were apprehended at the Democratic National Committee, DNC, office in the Watergate complex. The arrests were reported by the Washington Post, and subsequent investigations revealed links to high-ranking Nixon administration officials such as E. Howard Hunt Jr. and G. Gordon Liddy. Despite early denials by the White House, evidence of a cover-up emerged, with President Nixon ordering the FBI to limit its investigation. Journalists Woodward and Bernstein, supported by anonymous source Deep Throat, later revealed as FBI Deputy Director W. Mark Felt Sr., exposed Nixon's involvement and a widespread campaign of political sabotage. Despite attempts to downplay the scandal, Nixon won re-election in 1972 but faced impeachment proceedings, ultimately resigning in 1974 due to the Watergate revelations.
In a period when our entire focus should be on the great issues of peace abroad and prosperity without inflation at home. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
The trial of the Watergate burglars and accomplices began before Nixon's second-term inauguration. Despite a narrow indictment on charges of burglary and conspiracy, Judge John J. Sirica pressed on matters beyond the indictment, exposing the financial involvement of the White House. Most defendants pleaded guilty, with Liddy and McCord convicted. The Senate established the Select Committee on Presidential Campaign Activities, chaired by Samuel J. Ervin Jr., to investigate abuses in the 1972 campaign. Allegations surfaced during FBI nominee Patrick Gray's hearings that White House aide John Wesley Dean III had improper access to the Watergate investigation. The period following the Watergate arrests saw televised hearings chaired by Senator Samuel J. Ervin Jr., shedding light on widespread corruption within the Nixon administration.
To intensify or reiterate unfounded accusations or to poison further the political climate of our nation. On the contrary, it is my conviction and that of the other committee members that the accusations that have been leveled and the evidence of wrongdoing that has surfaced has cast a black cloud of distrust over our entire society. Our citizens do not know whom to believe, and many of them have concluded that all the processes of government have become so compromised that honest governance has been rendered impossible.
Were you aware of his activities on June the 17th?
I was not. I first heard that there was a burglary Saturday afternoon after I finished a meeting about, mid-afternoon. And somebody came by the door and they said, "Have you heard there's been a burglary at the Democratic National Committee?" And I said to some people who were in that meeting who were not from the committee, I said, "That could never happen here because I have this guy working for me named Jim McCord."
The hearings, comparable to historic events like the Constitutional Convention and Lincoln-Douglas debates, revealed a White House entrenched in paranoia and corruption. The televised proceedings captivated millions of Americans, triggering societal shifts, stock market disruptions, and widespread public engagement. Despite initial skepticism and political resistance, revelations by witnesses like John Dean and Alexander Butterfield, who disclosed secret tapes, undermined Nixon's credibility.
January 21st, 1969, and continue to be employed until March 14 of this year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Butterfield, are you aware of the installation of any listening devices in the Oval Office of the President?
I was aware of listening devices. Yes, sir.
When were those devices placed in the Oval Office?
Approximately the summer of 1970. I cannot begin to recall the precise date. My guess, Mr. Thompson, is that the installation was made between, and this is a very rough guess, April or May of 1970 and perhaps the end of the summer or early fall 1970.
Are you aware of any devices that were installed in the Executive Office Building office of the President?
Yes, sir, at that time.
Were they installed at the same time?
They were installed at the same time.
The Saturday Night Massacre, where Nixon fired Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox, intensified public outrage. On September 8, 1974, President Gerald Ford granted Richard Nixon a full and unconditional pardon for any crimes committed during his presidency, causing a sharp decline in Ford's popularity.
Finally, I feel that Richard Nixon and his loved ones have suffered enough and will continue to suffer no matter what I do, no matter what we as a great and good nation can do together to make his goal of peace come true. Now therefore, I, Gerald R. Ford, President of the United States, pursuant to the pardon power conferred upon me by Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, have granted, and by these presents do grant, a full, free, and absolute pardon unto Richard Nixon for all offenses against the United States which he, Richard Nixon, has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from July 20, 1969 through August 9, 1974.
The pardon fueled public cynicism, marking the culmination of a scandal that had already led to the incarceration of several of Nixon's closest aides. This era of disillusionment persisted throughout the 1970s, with Ronald Reagan's presidency in 1980 seen as a response to break the pervasive gloom overshadowing the nation due to Watergate and the Vietnam War. The Watergate legacy endured, with subsequent scandals often labeled with a "gate" suffix. Nixon's efforts, even posthumously, to prevent the release of his tapes failed, and the recordings unveiled insights, including a revelation that Nixon had ordered the firebombing of the Brookings Institution to erase evidence of sabotaging the 1968 Paris peace talks. The impact of Watergate continued to influence American politics into the 21st century. Hey guys, thank you for watching the video. And if you have made it till here, please consider subscribing and liking the video. And if you guys want me to continue this series of FBI cases, let me know by a comment down below.